Well, here we go. It's time for the news review right here on the AM show. Joining me this morning, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's the Director for the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. Stay with us. We have all the scoop from the papers. Let's start with a data graphic. Creating economic model, focus on Africa's interest. President charges states and financial institutions. So what exactly has His Excellency been saying? President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has challenged African nations and their financial institutions to come up with a new economic model that will serve the interest of their peoples and not profit advanced nations. That, he explained, was necessary because, quote, profits from our resources have benefited foreign creditors for far too long while we suffer abusive borrowing cost on the international capital market. So the president has a point here. Some of those who, when the Portuguese came to Ghana and others, they literally plundered our land. And I say it without any qualms at all, because that was what happened. The colonial period, and when these, foreign powers, Western powers, started hitting our continent, they took whatever they wanted. They had munitions that we had never seen before. They subdued us, and they took whatever they wanted. They plundered our country. But here we are, so many centuries afterwards, and we're still caught in this web where even when it comes to our own development, our own natural resources, they seem to be tied to the apron strings of the Western world. It's not to say that we shouldn't be a part of the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF, the World Bank, and all of that. So the IMF recently is saying, do more for your people in terms of that. How do we do that? Do we come back to you? Is that the option? I mean, there are so many dynamics to this. But when Mr. President says this, what comes to mind is our royalties system and how for the last few decades, in fact, all through our development, we have had to hinge the mining, the extraction, the benefits of our mineral resources, tie them to the apron strings of powers from the West. And so it is a new form of colonialism, just like Nkrumah spoke of. We're living it today. We're being neo-colonized, if you like. Same script. So, Mr. President, how do we change it? How? That's a question for everybody. We have no business being this poor as a country. No business. But we are. Anyway, so that is Mr. President. The president added that there was no basis for African economies to be saddled with the so-called African risk premium, which translated into higher spreads for European and North American counterparts, particularly when African resources were the catalyst for the economic advancement of Western nations. But who in his right mind would say, oh, I'm developing, but nah, I'm not going to develop, unless they have leaders who are a bit, compassionate, if you like. But that's not what we're seeing from the West. They take and they take. The likes of France, the likes of Britain, the UK put together, all of those countries, the United States, even China in Asia. Look, they're not here for our benefit. They're here for their own benefit. And that is the simple truth. Well, let me say a very good morning to Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, who joins the conversation on a Wednesday morning. Doc, good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
It's a pleasure having you. I was just ranting a bit about what the president has said. Focus on Africa's interest. President charges states and financial institutions. But the mineral resources, once they are available, the West will want to take advantage. They will want their entities to give us the least royalties and, get the highest benefits for their country. So it is up to us to find ways of getting the most out of these resources, because guess what? They are finite. Those were the thoughts I was sharing earlier. Any thoughts?
Oh, yes. What you said was nothing but the right statement that needs to be made at this time. Nkrumah warned us that we must be very careful, that after independence, there will be another form of colonization that is going to be difficult for us to break the neck of that thing. We are saddled with that right now. If you have read Claude Ake's book about development, he gives us a hint that we are bankrupt of ideas. Otherwise, we will, straight away from independence, would have done something better for ourselves in terms of development and all that. We started off with a manner of ideas leading to the Lagos Plan of Action and all that. We have thrown them away, went for the Western ones, and now here we are. We can develop our own system. But you said it right, that, look, there is no business. We have no excuse not developing this state or this continent, because read Ali Mazuri, he tells you Africa is the richest and yet is the poorest. The paradox of it, what we are seeing. We have all the resources that you should be able to make us what rich, and yet we are poor. This is the case that we are bereft of ideas. Otherwise, we should be able to put things together, have our own model, and then develop our system. But one more thing also is that we lack the political will to do this. Do we have what it takes to take that decision without the fear that the Western world will not come at us? That is one thing that is worrying us. We also don't have ideas that will really translate things for us and make life better for all of us. We don't have that. More importantly, we are not ready. We are not ready for any means of any model or any paradigm shift that we need to. We are not ready. It's just a talk shop. But the real action, when it comes to that, our people will check it out. I'm afraid to say this. We are not ready.
So apt, the picture you paint. So apt. So, right on the head of the nail. There's also Audit Service wins audit report. I just felt I had to highlight this as well. The Ghana Audit Service has won the 2021 Best Performance Audit Report Prize for its report on the provision of flood control drains, which sheds light on flooding in the country. The service was adjudged the best after a unanimous declaration by the review panel of the African Organization of English-Speaking Supreme Audit Institutions, AfroSci-E, which reviewed the report. That's on page 41. I want to link it to the recent floods. Put your surroundings in order, Meteorological Agency advises. That story is on page 16. Doc, so let me just run this by you. A few days ago, I saw a certain party person post a picture in the Daily Graphic banner headline from 1960. It had to do with flooding. Today, 61 years on, we're still experiencing same. In fact, worse, much worse. The recent, rains have been, they last pretty long, 7 hours and the rest, and the sort of havoc it wreaks. Look, even our Lands Commission was affected. They are claiming, well, they have soft copies and so nothing has been affected. But the mere fact that an institution like that can have a place with documents, this is going to come at some cost. Getting these documents back in order, my apologies, and all of that. So I'm asking, as we say it in our local parlance, did we go or did we come? 61 years on, a problem that existed under Nkrumah is still here with us. Go, you will see a lot of our storm drains choked. There's one around the Paloma area. Choked. Recently, of course, you wouldn't expect Paloma to take it up, and I'm using this cautiously. Flooding some places in the environs of that establishment and all of that. It is serious. People send me videos. Their rooms are basically overtaken by flood water. You can't inhabit your own room. Your fridge, everything is gone. Think about it. Even if you have a faulty system or you've plugged this thing in, you step into your own room, you could get electrocuted. What kind of country are we? Are we in? Doc, I don't get it.
Yeah, you will not get it simply because our institutions are broken down. That's all. Institutions that are to ensure that people get the right permit to build, they have failed to do their work. Institutions that are supposed to make sure that there's proper planning when we are developing the city, they are not working. Institutions that are supposed to monitor or go around and check whether these drains are up to scratch. Are they working? They don't exist in this country. Yet they draw salary from the government. And the government is also sitting down, not taking action. And then here you are. It is a weak capacity that the state has. I am worried because if you continue on this tangent, the time comes that all the institutions are down, then we are in a failed state. I am praying we don't get there.
Well. Maybe the final story I'll do from the Daily Graphic newspaper. Woman dumps twin babies in well. Really sad. A 20-year-old lady, Elian Zumese, is in the grip of the Sunyani police for allegedly dumping her 3-month-old male twins in a well to die. The circumstances, whether economic or otherwise, I think we need to do a lot more education. Of course, look at her age, 20 years, likely with no means of sustenance, likely got pregnant mistakenly, though you can't say, I mean, you engage in certain acts, you should expect pregnancy. But all of this, and it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for me that this allegedly has been done. But a lot of people will tell you, even when it comes to teens getting married too young, they'll tell you economic circumstances. Doc, do you have a take on this? Or should we move on to the next one?
Yes, there are a lot of factors that will explain this. One is the fact that we are now, socialization has broken down completely, which socialization starts with agencies such as the family, where people are giving proper education about how to live, how to, mature through the process, and how to do the needful so that you don't rush into certain programs that will bring problems like this to you. All right. Socialization has broken down. The family has ceased to exist to give people proper orientation, education about these things. Apart from this, we can also say that the institutions, the agencies such as schools, have also failed on their duty to educate children about these things. So here you are. Of course, monetary bit is also part where children, now because the families are broken down, children have to fend for themselves. And the results or the consequences is some of these things that we need to do. Going forward, we need to give proper education, and it should be a continuous one. We should do it without ceasing, and then make sure that it ties in with academic programs and programs that we have in churches, mosques, shrines, and all that. Because look, we need to build the capacity of these children if we want to save the state, so that we don't incur costs and then all manner of problems as a result of this. The state must be up in doing, families must be up in doing, and then institutions that are taxed to ensure that children get properly educated, socialized, so that they become fit for purpose. Those institutions must be seen to be working. We need that. We need that.
We sure do. Let's look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. At AGM of African Development Bank in Accra, let's develop African economic model to serve our interests. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. OSP charges MCE nominee to appear before Kumasi High Court. Torrential rains wreak havoc in Accra, disrupt economic activity and destroy property. That story is on page 15. If you see something, say something. Launched to sensitize public to threats of terrorism. I'll just do two stories. The one on page 10 and the one on page 16. Let's start with the one on page 10 very quickly. And if you see something, say something. The senior presidential advisor at the presidency, Mr. Yao Safo-Mafo, has called on Ghanaians to put away their differences and forge ahead as a united people in combating the threats of terrorism in the country. According to him, the fight against the increasing threats of terrorism in the country could only be won if all Ghanaians came together and actively supported the security agencies in that direction. And quoting him, he says, if you see something, say something. This is a status that cannot and should not be taken for granted. He was talking about Ghana's democracy and the fact that we are an oasis for peace on the continent. But do you feel that genuinely there are some people who would say, maybe I'm not in support of this administration or this party, so I'm not going to support the cause. Even if I see something, I am not going to say anything. Do you feel, politically speaking, there are such elements? And what do we do? Education? To bring them out of that state?
Yeah, there are elements like that in our society, that they don't care a hoot about what happens to the state. But they should remember that they have no state except Ghana. So we owe it a duty to ourselves to protect and defend the state at all times, so that we can, survive. Education has to come in, where people get to know that they owe the state a responsibility, and they owe it not only to the state, to themselves as well. We need proper education, a continuous one, and we need also to build the capacity of our people. Like, it is not enough to say that you have seen something, you have to say something. We should be able to educate our people, build their capacity in such a way that they should go beyond this to provide certain information, data to security people without fear. Sometimes people are afraid of churning out information because of certain negative consequences and all that. We should clear all those things, those doubts in the minds of people, and get them properly framed for such exercise. That means that we need to build their capacity to be able to do the needful for the state and for themselves.
And so far, we hear a lot of commentary about terrorist threats and this and that. But have we done enough? Have we done enough? I mean, there's a lot of talk about it. Oh, let's beware, let's be careful. It could hit us next. And we have the signs, the writing is on the wall. Because usually they would also attack resource-rich countries. We have the gold, we have the oil, we have all of these things that entice people like that. Some say they would attack our coastline and all of that. But are we doing enough as a state? Because I always say we've never been tested really when it comes to the terrorist threat. Most of our neighbors have. We have never been. So when you look at our state of readiness from the point of the military, from the point of even internal security, like the national security operatives, like the Ghana Police Service, you look at our resources, financial and all of that. Is it comforting for you?
We don't have resources, but let us give the government some credit. All governments we have seen since terrorism emerged on the international plane, Ghana has done its bit to bring it to where we are now. The fact that we have not been attacked tells you that our security have been working 24/7. What we need to do is to build their capacity, help to give resources that will enable them procure certain materials, certain equipment to be able to do the work and do it better. That is what we need, and also strengthen them to fight this battle. But I believe that over the years they've done a lot for this country. Otherwise, we have been hit long time. The fact that we have not been hit tells you that there's a work that is going on. But that is not to say that we don't need to build their capacity. We need to build it and build it solidly so that they can, do the work for us. Right.
Now, as I take the next story, here is, Bernard Bafo, and it's a bit of a blanket statement, but you tell me whether you disagree after I read what I'm about to. It's on the Facebook thread, those watching us live. Bernard Bafo says, thieves everywhere in Ghana, MPP and NDC. Here's the story on page 17 of the Ghanaian Times newspaper. OSP charges MCE nominee to appear before Kumasi High Court. And we know the story. Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka, the man who was seen in a video in September 2021, allegedly asking for a refund of 1,000 cedis each from assembly members of the New Dwaben Municipal Assembly in the Ashanti region for not endorsing him as MCE, has finally been charged. He is expected to make his first appearance before the Kumasi High Court Criminal Division after he was charged with 26 counts of corruption by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Mr. Safo Kantanka was President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's MCE nominee for New Dwaben, who claimed that that assembly members took money from him to confirm his nomination but failed to do so. In September 2021, the then nominee was seen in a video asking for a refund from the assembly members after he obtained only 3 out of 26 votes in the first round of voting. Does that confirm what this person watching live has said, corruption everywhere. The rot is everywhere. Our leaders are all gone.
Oh, this is not a new statement. We know already, except that we are not ready to fight corruption. All we have done over the years is rhetoric, paying lip service to the fight against corruption. We are not ready. Because look, this phenomenon has been with us since time of Noah, when he was a sailor, all right? We've seen this time and again. Read reports about this, and people have come out with a number of reports, but we don't do anything about it. We have seen them on videos, and you recall there was MPP primaries, and somebody went and gave out bicycles and all that, and people voted against him, and he was on the social network demanding a return of the bicycles and all that. What happened to that person? It tells you there is what? Political corruption. People use corrupt means to get power. They influence people. They induce people, which are against the laws. But once you belong to a certain political party, you are untouchable. Political parties have failed, or government for that matter, have failed to deal with those people. So some of these things will come and then they fly past. We are not able to handle it. I'm happy that the OSP is taking political notice of this and is want to handle it. I am all for it. But I want to believe that he will have the capacity, he will have the courage to continue when he gets a lot of people to court. The political actors will come at him, but he must be very strong. This is where we need him to be able to be strong and then fight it. Otherwise, the office will lose its shine. I am with him. I support him. He must get the courage to continue and get more of such people to face the music. Yes.
Well, staying on that tangent, maybe fittingly, the Daily Guide newspaper, of course, interesting headlines. Rains strip Accra naked. That's a very picturesque way of putting it. And then they talk about the Joabeng MPP chairman who has been charged for corruption, Nana pushing for economic reform, that is the president, and Jeff Kunedu kicking off his Eastern Regional chairmanship campaign. But how about staying on that tangent? Sir John owns no land at Achimota Forest. This is an interesting one. I'm sure you followed all the commentary, the Lands Ministry, what they've said about Achimota land, and even if he acquired it at any point, it cannot be passed on, it cannot be willed to anybody. But you look at the dynamics, what we've seen, shockingly, and dead men don't talk. So, of course, we would try not to, because he can't be here to defend himself. But the lands, even at a point, the Ramsar side talking about, chiefs, don't do this. Apparently, he was mining there. The acquisitions, the landed property, so buildings in a space of 5 months. I mean, how property was acquired every 2 to 3 months, a new building, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom. And you look at the list, you look at 2017, after he got his position, all the way till his unfortunate demise. And you look at the sort of things he acquired. People are asking, how is that possible? And does it even make sense to want to be patriotic and to want to do it the right way, work hard in this country anymore? Because someone in the twinkling of an eye, because of a political position, can get everything. And you work your buttocks off for 4 decades, 5 decades, and retire on some local fuel that will not even fill your fuel tank. Your reflections on the Sir John matter, his will, his last testament, and matters arising.
We are in difficult times. Why? We want a democracy, but our actions do not support the firming of democratic structures. Why am I saying this? Democracy requires us to be sincere, to be law-abiding and all that. But you see, you give political power to people and then they amass wealth. they create all manner of problems for the state. What is more worrying is that the state is not able to sanction those individuals so that they serve as deterrent to others. We always want to glorify. We always want to even raise those people to high heavens and all that. I think what has come out from Sir John's story must be a learning curve for all of us. And if we are able to weather the storm, I think we'll save this democracy and protect it forever. If we fail to do this, I'm afraid we are going to get all manner of institutions down, and then we go back to the state of nature, which you and I do not want to go.
The final bits I'll do, just a bit of entertainment from the Daily Guide newspaper. Black Sheriff cautions Black Rasta. And Black Rasta appears to be underestimating his hard work, according to Black Sheriff, the Kweku the Traveler hitmaker. And basically, Black Rasta is saying you could end up being a one-trick pony, one style, and that's it. But Black Sheriff is saying, no, I was doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and look, don't downgrade me. Don't think that this is a fluke, it's just luck. Black Rasta, I suggest you support the guy if you can. I mean, yes, caution, yeah, but sometimes I think we overdo it with some of these young artists. They are young and they will mess up at some point. Who hasn't messed up before? Hands in the air. Let's give them benefit of the doubt. If you remember from way back, VIP, Friction regrets abandoning VIP, and Sam Ajetefio goes home on June the 4th. All of those stories in the Daily Guide newspaper. Let's do Republic Press. African business leaders to storm Kweku in October. Girl 16 stabbed to death over boyfriend. Nowadays, you don't get it. Someone has been, given an acid bath. Another person has been slashed with machetes. Another person has been stabbed. There's also SP charges drubbing, bribe MCE. No one will inherit Sir John's alleged land at Achimota Forest, according to the lands minister. And lands ministry, or lands commission. Anyway, minority calls for probe into Achimota Forest lands declassification. Any thoughts on that? The minority calling for a probe into the Achimota Forest land declassification saga. Your thoughts, Doc? Any reflections on that?
I believe that lands that have been acquired for public use must be used for that purpose. If we are not interested in that, we give it back to the owners. There's no point ordinary people will maximize its usage to the detriment of those who own the lands. That becomes unfair, and that will serve as, a stumbling block for those who want to give their property for state use. That correction needs to be done. So I support the call by the minority that these things must be probed so that we get the full facts and then act on them. Act on them. The magic word is that we should be able to act on them. Sometimes probes are set up, reports are generated, and they gather dust in our shelves and libraries and all that. What do we do with it? If we want to go into action, we need to do that. Otherwise, there's no point having even any committee at all. It's a waste of our resources. But I think we need to save this state by doing the needful. Democracy hinges on law. So if we don't want to use the law to regulate the conduct of the people, then we must as well forget about democracy, because then we are not ready to practice it.
All right. The Finder newspaper now. Kweku Summit to attract over 500 political and business leaders. There's also vigilance of citizens crucial in fight against terrorism. Stories we've already looked at. Let me wrap with the BNFT. After the African Continental Free Trade Area arrangement loses $5 billion yearly to third-party payment systems, as AU makes case for PAPS, of course, AU Day on our hands. Inflation targeting framework still effective. Addison, that's according to the Bank of Ghana. Governor, rising prices coming from global shocks. There's also PAPS remains most important African monetary initiative in decades. That's according to Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who has urged capital market stakeholders within the sub-region to ride on the back of the Pan-African payment and settlement system as they seek to further integrate, describing the platform as the most important monetary development in Africa since 1960. I had the benefit of being there hosting that program as master of ceremonies, and it was indeed a wonderful event. But this is what the vice president is saying. When you look at our failure to get the eco running and all the dynamics here, even in West Africa, we have ECOWAS, but how integrated are we? You want to move to the next Francophone country, and especially if you're from an Anglophone country, it's a bit more difficult and all of that. We say we have the Ghana card, we want to have a system where you can use it, go around, but all of these things are not really working. When you look at integration, what more do you want to see so that Africa can benefit from African intra-trade and not depend so much on trade from the Western world?
Are we ready to walk the talk? There have been a lot of talk on this. And he rightly said about our inability to let the eco come on board and work. I was a reporter at the office of the president, 2001, when President Kufuor and his colleagues signed a memorandum to this effect at Yamoussoukro. All right. I thought that right away from that place, we're going to into full action. How many years on? And the same story is being said. My brother, let's forget about African leaders with regard to some of these things. They will only come and talk. They are not ready. But I believe a day will come where we'll have some leaders who will take the bull by the horn and decide that, look, enough of the rhetorics, and they will walk the talk. That day will come, and democracy will be a champion on that day.
Democracy will prevail. I like your optimism. I love it. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us this morning for the review.
I'm grateful.
We are grateful to you. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist, director for the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana, joining us for a conversation. Right before I go, let me just send some shouts to my friend, my brother, Samuel Kafui Avowulano. You are gunning for SRC president at the Ghana School of Law. You did fantastic at the recent vetting. Guess what? I'm just wishing you the very best this morning as you go into the election. Let's see what happens. Up next, we have Oreku with sports coming up on the show. Stay.